We got a couple new constitutional amendments. Suddenly there's a national electoral campaign, really, that women are voting, senators have to face their voters, and the funding for the government is coming from a national tax base. So there's no tariffs anymore. Um, these constitutional amendments helped create a national political contest, which we've had ever since. The Progressive Era was a time where everyone across the political spectrum was uncomfortable in some way with the rapid industrialization of the economy. It was really unsanitary. A lot of people were dying of illnesses that they contracted from their jobs. That was especially sensitive at a time where children comprised a lot of the workforce. Also, the elites of the 19th century still kind of held the government in their hands, and the middle class wanted to assert itself as a participant in making the laws. And then I'll close this section with a quick look at the coalition that propelled the Democratic Party going into the early 1920s. A lot of the progressive era is discussed in terms of a conflict between democracy and efficiency. These are still things that humans in general want. If you're an ordinary person, you want to have some voice in your government. And if you live under a system of policies, then you want them to get the filth out of the way. You want them to keep the streets clean and the machines safe. So I'm writing a paper now about the eugenics movement, and there's certainly a lot of difficulty with the progressive era, but we inherited a lot of big changes from this moment of limitless ambition. Please let me know if you'd like to see some PDFs of socialist newspapers. This is also a time where a lot of people are moving to America and within America. There's a lot of westward expansion. Socialists started colonies in this time in California and Oregon, a lot of other states. A lot of socialists moved to Kansas. Lax immigration policies let tons of Europeans come into New York City through Ellis Island. A lot of black families fled the South as refugees. One of the efforts to control these new populations in northeastern and western cities was prohibition, which was thought correctly to be really difficult for immigrants from Germany and Ireland. So these really disrupted a lot of the political coalitions, so that it was difficult for Democrats to be both the party of working Catholic immigrants and also white Protestant, temperance teetotalers all at the same time. So ultimately, the conservative Protestants are going to lose a lot of power in the Democratic Party. This new era where the Democrats are a really crappy Labor Party is the era that we're in now. And it's possible that the New Deal is the most important moment in all of US history for us to answer questions like, how can the working class build power? How should the state intervene in the national economy? What stands in the way when Congress and the White House are both committed to economic justice? These are questions that maybe we'll never have a conclusive answer to, but are important in our organizing. So this is a graphical representation I found mostly showing how small the Republican Party was. But, there's a lot of people who end up getting pulled into the New Deal coalition who aren't left-wing intellectuals or anything. They're just ordinary people who can't go anywhere else because the Democratic Party was guaranteeing something that they absolutely needed for their survival. One of the legacies of FDR's 1932 campaign is the first 100 days meme. So presidents are supposed to do stuff in the first 100 days because that's what FDR said, that he was going to fix the whole depression in 100 days, or at least put a lot of people back to work and get food on people's table. This is also when the Constitution was amended to move Inauguration Day from March to January, because people were so tired of waiting for FDR. Another thing FDR did was replace a lot of machine cronies with candidates from the American Labor Party. So this not only helped to make the Democrats more of a workers' party, but it removed some competition from Labor Party candidates who might have run against Democrats. Now we end up with all these agencies. Why did the progressives and the New Deal liberals establish all of these? One idea is that they wanted to insulate their achievements from judges who would try to screw the whole thing up, like they did with the Reconstruction Amendments. So just like Tammany Hall, federal judges were trying to hold their own power. The bench was conservative. It was selected by the Republicans of from the Gilded Age consensus. So national economic policy was going to have to be administered by thousands of full-time employees, or else, just like prohibition, it was going to fall apart. Think of the administrative state the way you think of the 5 phases of grief. What did the New Dealers learn from Reconstruction? Did they repeat any mistakes, correct any? Did they overcorrect and make the opposite mistake that the Reconstruction people made? It's interesting to think of how people in our history looked back on their own history. One way that the New Dealers improved upon the model of the Reconstruction movement was they paid careful attention to the courts. So we ended up getting, as I'll discuss very briefly, the Warren Court. At the end of the 1950s, black voters resided mainly in the most important swing states in the Electoral College. There was also a much more liberal federal bench after years and years of FDR, Truman, and even Eisenhower appointing relatively progressive judicial nominees. Southern conservatives had lost a lot of their intra-party influence in the Democratic Party, and the Great Depression had repudiated the 19th century understanding of the market as this kind of all-resolving solution to economic problems. Next time, we will discuss the rights revolution of the 1960s.